So our office is still closed.
Okay.
That's fine. So just a brief COVID update. So our office is closed. It'll remain closed for all of July. We're still running training. We've got a governance workflow engine course to be running next week. And we're also running a 2-day QualiWare basic course for one of the integrators who is on one of the integrators for the ESDC transformation projects that are going on there. So that they can understand the tool's capabilities as they start on the first work packages. So we have some outside organizations that outside of government departments that deal with government departments that are picking up QualiWare knowledge for their various projects. And our training schedule on the closereach.ca site is up to date with other courses running through July and August. So if you want to check there, if you're looking for training for your people, we're going to be running through the summer. We're in the process of updating a few of our courses. Actually, we're just putting together some things for D&D right now in terms of updating their DINDAF course that we teach, D&D's Architecture Framework, which is a 5-day course. And we'll be updating that content, but our own internal courses. So that update is driving some course changes internally, and we're also adding to our roster with a couple of workshops that we're just putting together. So you want to be checking the training part of the closereach.ca site. What I'm showing here is on my screen is one of the accelerators that I talked a little bit about that our last session. Things that we're doing to increase the adoption of QualiWare, and whether it's something that we build with a department and then generalize. For example, with Border Services Agency, we took the GSRM meta model that they originally had us build for them and generalized that for use and made that available to any government department that wants it. So if you're looking for a way of describing your services and how you interact with the public and how your various programs fit together and triggers and things like that, the GSRM meta model and documentation is available at no cost. The translation accelerator started with D&D and it's been generalized and upgraded by thanks to shared services. So improved the information accessible, from the tools bar within QualiWare. We're in conversations with a company that's partially owned by QualiWare in Norway called QualiSoft, and we're looking at a tool that they have right now to actually accept rule changes or legal or policy changes and use 2 or 3 different governance workflows to drive out acknowledgement of the new policies, as well as whether the things that people are doing are compliant with those policies. So it's a separate little governance package, and we've got it in a demo mode right now, but we're looking at how we either bring that out as a standalone offering. So anybody could use it. We run it in our cloud environment. You tell us what rules and regulations you want to be compliant with, and you would log into our cloud to document all that stuff. Or we would look at how we implement that in one of the on-prem implementations that the departments have. We see this also as a way of potentially governing and forcing compliance to and requirements traceability. So there's a couple of different ways that what QualiSoft is putting together can be used, and we're just looking at that. The thing I'm going to show you today is a product called Fortig, and it's put out by a company called Data Masters in BC, and it's all about asset management and asset reliability and accelerating the performance of your assets. And for those kinds of assets we're talking about are talking about large things. So buildings, ships, plant, you know, those kinds of things. It's totally built on QualiWare.
Can we take questions at the end or as you go along?
You can ask questions along the way.
Okay, I wanted to ask about the company that you're doing some collaboration with, or QualiSoft, you said.
Yes.
For compliance, does this have anything to do with accessibility?
Sorry, with
accessibility, like you know, the tool be more accessible or compliant with the accessibility rules, or it's not related to that at all?
You're talking accessibility from the point of view of
like maybe from the point of view of web compliance accessibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Jacob might have something to say on that in a little bit.
Okay.
But because we are actually just talking about that today. Yeah, the QualiSoft is a company that's primarily centered not in the enterprise architecture space, but in the quality management space. So, and business excellence. So we're looking at what we can adopt from that to carry over here. And we do have some quality management customers. Queedy, Eric Sheik is one. I said Industry Canada. The patent office is just coming on board with that, and there's a couple of others. Fortig here is, you know, looking at connecting the right people and asset management together, taking a look at commissioning and tracking progress and reliability over time. Again, looking at physical assets. So a lot of organizations say, well, we don't have a lot of that, but I mean, if you look at CBSA has a lot of different facilities. Public Works is concerned with, you know, has an enormous real estate portfolio. The Coast Guard, a lot of ships, the Navy, the Air Force, the Army. So there are a lot of assets out there that are large that, you know, there's engineering and reliability and things like that to be concerned with. Interestingly, Fortig as well looks at, you know, the enablers, the technologies, the stakeholders of the asset. It leverages the QualiWare EA platform, you know, in terms of reusability and scalability, you know, compliance and collaboration, all of those things. But what it actually allows you to do is quickly build that digital twin of your organization. And so you can, in a logical fashion, mirror, you know, large-term assets that are out there in the physical world. You know, whether it's a fleet of ships, whether it's a set of plants or mills or buildings. I'm not going to go through this in a lot of detail, but essentially Fortig takes ISO 55000 and quantifies it, puts it into a framework of best practices and different components within the QualiWare workspace. And, you know, stage 2 is actually taking real-time information from the real world and overlaying it on that, looking at reliability over time. I'm not going to go into tons of detail here, but there's lots of things going on, you know, in terms of Internet of Things, cloud, you know, big data analytics, you know, customer business models are being turned on their head. So how do we build a digital twin and a management system and relate that to various quality standards and what's happening in the real world. So we'll make this presentation available to people afterwards. I'm not going to go through it in a lot of detail. Looking at capital versus expense, looking how that asset, gets built, right from the planning stage, right through commissioning, and then how it gets managed over its life cycle. And there's lots of assets out there. I mean, you could actually look at systems, in this way. But Fortig is really focused on physical assets. But I think there's some things there that, are transferable to other types of assets. I'm not going to go through a whole lot more of this. I do want to show you a framework. Can everyone see this? Is it large enough to read? Everybody's on mute.
I can see it. I don't know about whether or not everyone thinks it's big enough. Might want it to be a bit bigger.
All right, let's see what I can do. How about that?
Yeah, it's better. You'll just need to adjust it a little bit so it's more in the...
Yep, in the center space. So essentially, looking at, so this is the Fortig framework, looking at things from a strategy perspective, again, tied to business processes, and the overall business context, the data, building out strategy and the scope, of what these assets are covering, stakeholders, organizational. I mean, this is typical EA stuff. But then driving that out into, the actual assets themselves and the information that we can collect about those assets over time and their performance over time. So that, again, we can pull back information from the real world and overlay that on the architecture to give to management to make decisions. Are we making proper use of these assets? Are they affecting our ability to deliver, et cetera, et cetera? So they have, so Data Masters has built out, an entire management system around this, and it's implemented in QualiWare. So this is one of the accelerators that Close Reach is looking at making available to help people manage their business better. CBP is another one of those. So we're going to be putting this up on the SALSA. So if there are government departments that want to acquire this this framework, they'll be able to do that and very easily implement it in QualiWare. So let's talk about, let's see if I can find my screen. Has anybody out there ever gone to the Close Reach support portal? Do people out there know it exists?
Yep, I'm there. I do.
Okay. JR, that's you?
Yeah, it's me in a mask.
Oh dear.
So Sue says she has used the portal, and so is Mike, just so you know. We've got some chat comments too.
All right. So everybody knows they can come here and they can do things like, if they can type, find things that they might want to know in terms of the translation tool, and find an attachment and open the PDF. To see how it actually works. So there are a number of different guides there now on the portal, and we're constantly adding things. And Scott and Rashad as they're finding things out, are also logging problems up there. So if there's an issue, if a problem happens, they'll put the notice up there with a description of how to solve that problem. Currently, only primary, secondary users can log into this portal. Okay, Rashab, it's giving me a hard time.
So the search you were doing before, you were doing it without logging in, so anybody
You can do a search without logging in. That's correct. So primary, secondary technical users are the only ones that we've allowed in the past to log into the portal. We're going to open that up to everybody. So if you've got something that's not working, or you want to open a ticket, you'll be able to log in and do that. You'll also be able to get a status on all your tickets, which I wish I could show you right now, but I can't. We're going to open this up to any users that want access to it. And so we're hoping to share more information through this portal that we've been able to in the past. And I'm very frustrated that I can't get in here and show you the 9 items that we have logged with QualiWare and their current status. However, Atsila, you're asking about different things up on the knowledge base. Yeah, we put anything that we can find out, whether it's SSL certificates, different error messages, anything that we can find. If we have different license updates, about different versions. Again, there might be an attachment posted, and we'll update that kind of comments there. So again, it's business and technical users is what we're aiming for with the portal here, and a number of different knowledge articles is increasing. In terms of I talked about the training before. We're updating our we're updating our course curriculum, and so our training calendar, showing what's going on. Yeah, Rashab, if you want to show your screen, that would be great.
Sure, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Okay. So once you log in, you can go to the known issues. Let's refresh this. I'm going to log in again. All right.
So here's the 9 different items, for example, open issues that we've opened with QualiWare right now, looking for answers from them. So we'll start to, with being able to log into the, everyone being able to log into the instance, you'll be able to start to see some of these things that right now are only visible to a few select users within GOC. And we'll be expanding the various options that you have in terms of license requests and things like that. So, Rashab, maybe show them how to get to the file transfer site, the other sites.
Yeah, so the list of sites are at the top right corner under Sites. So if you click on File Transfer Tool, it will take you to the close reach file share. Right now I'm logged in, so it took me straight in.
So people would normally only see the pieces that they're allowed to see.
Yeah.
And so, but Rashab can see everyone's, all the different departmental folders for where things that we might have downloaded or uploaded from that department. So this provides a way to transfer large files, you know, if we've got a dump file or a series of screenshots or other information like that. So. Thanks, Rashad.
No problem.
Cecile, you want to give me back? Actually, no, I don't. I think we want to have Jacob talk now.
Yes, we do.
All right. Cool. I had a complete failure in my system today, so I am not going to be able to do an introduction to 10.3. I managed to get access to a one of our development machines. So there are a few features that I want to show you that will be included in the release. And then we can go do a more step-by-step walkthrough on the next meeting. I'm really sorry about that, but yeah, I killed my SQL server. As always, when I start to talk now, you can interrupt me as much as you like if you have any questions. The first thing that I want to talk about, and I've shown this before when we talked about data visualization. When we go into the QualiWare tool and generate these different type of QRVs, there are different ways to visualize the data. So when you have a QRV like this, or a list of a report like this, you can pivot over the object, so you can pivot over one or two of these dimensions and create some sort of overview of the data and try to group them a little bit. And some people like this way of doing it, but others would prefer a more visual approach to kind of exploring the data. So it's very important that you realize that this is not necessarily direct relations in the repository. It is a report, but it's a set of data. And I showed you before that we have this visualize button. So when I click the visualize, it'll take everything that I have in a list like this and build a graphical view of this data. So if I click this visualize now, it will take everything I have in this list and build a graphical visual presentation of this data. Now this is I didn't put any filters on this, so you can see it becomes a very busy picture. So I'll just go back here and add a few filters to this. So if I go in here and click the filter, I now get the filter button up here. Since this is capabilities on a specific capability model, I can go in and focus on capabilities that are deemed to be differentiated from an importance point of view. And then from a maturity, I can go and have a look at all of those who are inconsistent in maturity, and that gives me a little bit more of a limited set of data. And when I click visualize now, what you'll see is because the amount of data is is lower, it now becomes a little bit easier to look at the model. So what I have in here are, in this case, the different capabilities, and then these capabilities, the relationship they have to the other dimension in the table. Since these objects can be a little bit dense, there's now a little bit of a highlighter in there. So when I go and hover over these, they'll tell me exactly what object this is. And the idea is here that this is a different way of trying to explore that data set. So instead of using the table-based setup, I can now go in here. If I collapse these, they will use the space to distribute the remaining data. When I go hover over these, I can right-click on the objects. If I choose focus, it will now put this particular relationship in focus and hide everything else. I can clear these as well. I can also go in and instead highlight. What highlight will do is it'll find everywhere where this particular IT system is. And now you can see they're all highlighted in here. And everywhere where this particular IT system does not exist, it will collapse those as well. This view here also allows me to explore some of the relationships in the repository. So right now, this is just my my table that I'm visualizing. But if I pick a specific system here, right-click, and then say Show Links, what it'll do now is it'll do a 3D explore or expansion of that, so we can see all the different objects behind. And as you can see, these can become a little bit big, and you can kind of navigate this from a 3D point of view. When you select any of the objects, you get the attributes, so you can get report on the different type of objects out here on the right as well. And there's a way to reset the view in here. An alternative to kind of exploding an object's relationships behind the scenes here is right-click and click Explorer. The right-click and Explorer will now zoom in on a particular object, and what it'll do now is it'll create a context view. So just like we have in QLM and also on the web, this is the same idea where you have the context view. So now the red, do you see the animations in here?
Yes.
So the red indicators here are the backward relationship. That means the red ones indicate that there's something pointing to my system, and the green means that the system is pointing to something, right? So here we have a relation called users information, and these are the information that this particular system is using. We can see that there's processes over here who, through the has IT support, is referencing this particular system. And we can go and if I right-click on any of these and explore again, now it'll drill into that particular process, and I can start to kind of step my way through my my repository and all these different relationships. And all of these, when I navigate through those, will be stored in a little breadcrumb up here, so I can go back through the different relationships and or different views that I have created as part of this process. So it's a different way of navigating all these different relationships. When in here as well, we have the repository explorer. You've seen this one before. But if I go the object, or in this case, the diagram. There's also now 3 little dots here, and when you click on those, it'll pop up with a menu similar to the one you have in QLM. So view here would, if I click that, it'll then open the diagram, and you will the system will take you to the diagram in the repository. If I click properties, it will open the dialog for the diagram. If I click edit diagram, it'll open the diagram editor for this particular diagram as well, so you can edit it as well. See if we can open it in here, and you can do graphical modeling on the web as well. If we continue through this one here, you can create new revisions. There's the languages. You can manage the hashtags, the collaborate. So if you create change request non-conformances, if you click them in here, it'll open up the dialog and automatically associated with, in this case, this Jitsi process overview. So there's a lot of these functions, similar type of functions as you have in QLM. And then from this view, you also have the visualize. So you can do the same thing in here when you click the visualize, and it will take up that particular diagram and again create that 3D model of the system, and you can navigate through them again and expand as much as you like. So it's it's going to be interesting to see how useful this is going to be. We believe that this way of being able to navigate data is going to be very important. So it's a feature we hope to get a lot of different feedback on as well. In here as well, you can create content. So if you go in and create new and do a test 3, it will now create a new diagram in this case, and a process network, and then open it up in edit mode, so I can start to model a new process and build new content in here as well. It hopefully makes it a little bit more intuitive to add and create new type of content. And if we press save and then exit, it should automatically grab a hold of that diagram and publish it. So when we go into the Explorer now and click on my process structure, it now has this new process published in there. So the idea with this one is very much, these are the folders. So these are the same folders as you see in QLM. These folders can be regular content based. That means it's a folder you just put content in, or they can be query based. So my processes or my creations means this is stuff that I have created. So they can be either a query or simply just folders like we know where we put content into. Yeah, those were the 2 things that I wanted to show today, Alan. I promise I'll go do a more structured walkthrough of the 10.3 next time.
What's the current timing for release?
I thought it would be ready today, so anytime now. I believed it passed the test yesterday, so working over the weekend, so anytime. Great,
thank you, Jacob.
One of just one last thing that is there is a United Nations made the initiative of the UN Global Compact to put focus on sustainability and ethics, both in government, but also in private sectors and responsibilities and so on as well. And we put some effort into putting in a framework to manage all this and map that up against your organization as well. So that will be included into that version 10.3 as well. And I don't know if this has, how much focus this has in Canada. It's spreading a lot around Europe right now. And as you can see, there are more and more companies who go out for right now, it's volunteer based. So you go out as a company or an organization and say, we commit to those goals, I think 10 goals that have been defined by the UN Global Compact. So we'll spend a little bit of time on this next time, and I'll go through some of these. But it's just so you're aware that we will be introducing a solution for that as well.
Okay.
We're not really sure about your choice of terms there about this spreading through Europe, but
it's not contagious, I promise. It's volunteer. But anyway, Trump says it's a hoax. So, all right.
Thank you. Does anybody, before we let Jacob go, does anybody have any questions for him? Okay.
Yeah, okay, I got one for you.
One is enough. Okay.
I just jumped back in. HTML dialog is in QEP. It's the form that pops up, so that way I can create new content. When you set it up, there's a way. What I'm looking for is a help on a field. So the name field is allowed to be 10 characters long and must start with the letter I. Is there that help in QEP so that a user can have that pop-up appear?
Yes.
And yes, this is really detailed, putting you on the spot.
No,
and I'm
that's
sorry.
fine. I'm used to it. I work with Kevin every day. So.
Thanks, JR. I knew I could count on you.
Yeah.
Let's see if I. We do have it in there, different type of guides and conditions. I don't think I have.
are you looking like a tooltip, JR?
Exactly like a tooltip
Yeah.
for that dialogue.
Yeah, we have a little. We have it for each field as well.
Yes, but it wasn't working in 10.2. My question, does it work in 10.3?
What? Are you okay? I don't know.
Okay.
That I don't know. But I've seen it work in 10.2 as well. All right. I don't know. That I can't. But yeah, those little question marks that pops up with the guide are in there. Yes. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know it more specific on that. I would need to check.
I will wait for 10.3 to come out, and if it doesn't work, Kevin, I'll send in a ticket.
Oh,
thank you.
Following up on that, last time when I did the demos, the question that I had promised I would follow up on was spell check. So we removed the spell checker from our tool in 2014, but it sounded like you guys wanted it back. So it is being reintroduced into QLM. We're hoping it'll make it for 10.3, but if not, it will definitely be in 10.2. They are actively trying to commit it right now and make sure it works.
Okay, so you just said spell check is being reintroduced. You're hoping for 10.3, but if not,
yeah.
Okay.
Definitely 10.4.
Okay.
And does that apply to QEP or just QLM?
It's a QLM spell checker. Anything on the web will be spell checked by the browser, so that you shouldn't see any issues there.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Oh, wait, now we have a chat. Hang on, Jacob. Oh, yes, Barry, I think, sorry, Barry had jumped in and said, JR, I assume you're referring to the question mark on a field.
Yes. And I'll reach out to Barry if he's got that working.
All right.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Jacob.
Go to bed. Have a good day, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks, Jacob.
All right.
Great. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay,
All right.
Kevin, I pass things back to you.
So one thing that Jacob was showing everybody was the web browser. And I just wanted to, there we go, add something to that. I'm going to go down to a lower level and edit a diagram. So this is what a plus user would see, okay? And a plus user can edit 4 different types of diagrams. The business process diagram, the business process network diagram, the workflow diagram, and the business process network Archimate diagram. So an architect user can edit all of the out-of-the-box diagrams, but a plus user is restricted to 4 diagram types. Interestingly, you'll notice if I hover over a particular object, it's got a set of handles. So it will create an object in the diagram in the way that I want to go. And then it will actually ask me what kind of path did I want that to be. So in the same way in QLM, if anybody's used it, on the BPMN diagram, there's a smart creator. I don't know if anybody's ever used that on the BPMN diagrams. And I can show that. QualiWare's done that essentially, from the web. So to be able to add, and essentially say, what kind of flow do you want to be adding here? Where do you want to go from here? So to make it easier, for people to draw out models. So you're not necessarily having to draw the arrows, makes it easier for people using the web. And you've got your radar window right down here showing you what your bigger model is. So again, trying to make that much easier for people to build these models. So take them away from Visio, have them working in here. And then Jacob actually showed you how you could go into the QualiWare side and see it, in the repository.
Kevin, is Earl here?
Yep.
Can you link to other objects such as gateways, data model objects? Because you're mapping process to process here, but can you?
There are 4 diagram types that you're allowed to do this with. Business process diagram, business process network diagram, a workflow diagram, and the Archimate version of a business process network. Now, that's with a plus license. If I'm an architect, well, actually, let's go do that because I'm actually signed into, yes. So let's close that diagram. And we're going to go back up to the top. And I want to look at an information model. What's showing on my strategy? I'm going to change my role off of management. See if I can get there from here. So I want to look at like a data model. So here I am in a data model. So I can now start to build out different data entities, subject areas, and things like that, you know, from the website. But the reality is the QLM side will give you a finer degree of control than the web does. But an architect can, you know, again, what do I want to create, right? I might have to move some things around. But, you know, it doesn't, so I've got the same kind of creation, you know, quicker creation capability. I don't have to draw the object and then necessarily draw the lines. Different way of modeling, you know, through the web. Eventually, everything is going to go to web. You know, QualiWare is going to get rid of the QLM Windows client, but we're some time away from that happening. One thing that people may not necessarily be aware of is that there is an icon up here that I don't know whether people saw that on Jacob's version. This is actually a link that takes me to my web client or my QLM client that I'm going to view in a browser. You'll notice right now I've got QLM loading in a browser tab. So I'm using, because I'm working off the cloud here, I'm using one of the capabilities of the virtual desktop to link to an application and display it in a browser. And, you know, this is essentially everything that, you know, that you have in the thick, you know, let's call it the thick client, but it's not actually installed on your machine, right? It's loaded into memory. But you're tied to it through a remote desktop. I've used that remote desktop and tied it in through a browser. And we're actually looking at how we use this to make our training simpler for people that are doing training. So they could be on one side in their browser and see what their published content is while they're building stuff, learning how to use QualiWare on this side. Just makes it, you know, it's a different approach, but I asked Jacob about this and said, so is that 10.3 or 10.2 or what version exactly? And he said, in actual fact, you could implement this in version 6. Scott, are you on the line?
I am. It's using Windows Virtual Desktop.
Thank you. And all it is a link to that desktop with that application sitting on it, right?
That's right.
Anything you want to add?
Well, it's using Windows Virtual Remote Application specifically. So what you basically have is a Windows Virtual machine that is running the client. So with just a link to that application, it can be run on any type of application, not just QLM, but you can actually have other programs, say if you wanted like Notepad or whatever. It just runs a virtual session of that. There are some limitations to it, but Microsoft's developing it rather rapidly because a lot of their stuff has been changing over the last few years so that you can do different things with this particular program.
Anyhow, so this is something that anybody who's got a cloud implementation right now, global affairs, or if I don't know what SSE's implementation is, if it's on an internal cloud there.
This looks good, Kevin. I have to get on to 10.2 first, though.
No, you do it in version 6.
Okay. I don't know anything below version 10, so.
Yeah, okay, there you go. Well, 10.2, this will work.
Yeah.
Anyhow, I just thought, I thought you might, people might find that interesting.
Yeah, this looks really good.
To look at some, here's the thick, essentially the thick client, but I'm in a browser.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So Kevin, do you know at all if in 10.3 they have increased the number of templates that you can model through the web? Are we still limited to the list that you just identified?
So from the architect side, you can model any of the templates, any of the diagrams.
Through the web, not using this FDP trick that you just showed us, right?
Well, okay. So I'm on the web right now, right? So yes. I just went into a data model, right?
Yeah.
I just went into a data model right there and edited it on the website. I can go to a strategy model. Okay, let's pick one of those diagrams. Digital Innovations Roadmap. How about that? And I don't have the, oh. And I should be able to edit that. All right, because in the process model, well, actually, they have some that are editable. All of their goal is all of them editable from the web. But as an architect right now, actually, Jacob, are you still here?
No, he's gone.
He's gone. He's gone. Yeah. The goal is everything editable from the website. They're not there yet.
Okay, they're not there. Okay.
But I will find out from Jacob exactly what models on under the architect license will be modable, editable in 10.3. Okay. Now you've really got me wanting to go go back and look at how come I was able to do that one. I was in logical data model, right? Yeah, I can edit that diagram. So if I went through all the different model types in the framework, I guess that's the question, which ones could I? Could I edit? I'll find that out for you in 10.2 and in 10.3.
And that'll be shared on your knowledge base website?
Yes, it will.
That's an excellent idea, Kevin. Thank you.
So I was going to talk a little bit about project management in QualiWare. Was one of the other topics for today. So I'm going to switch my role. And let me pull up another document. I'm going to go to strategy and look at a strategic roadmap. So there's lots of different ways that projects get run in an organization. Here I am on a strategic roadmap, and I have different initiatives and different projects here. I'm showing a breakdown of different costs, the different kinds of initiatives, what those totals are for spend and investments required. And you'll know from the dynamic web portal, I can change and look at different scenarios where I don't do these 3 projects, or you know what, yeah, I have enough money to add this one back in, and what's the impact, on the different types of graphics and graphs and charts that I have here. So, I can go and show this information. I can actually go to properties. And here are my different, initiatives, description, what stage is that at in terms of the project, what's its level of importance, start and end date, implementation likelihood, investment likelihood, how likely am I to get some funding for that? What's the cost, total cost, and different breakdown. What participating units, what processes are being supported, what associated information systems. So again, if I'm looking at things from a project management perspective, what are the things that are going to be impacted by this project? And I can actually go and, as I say, show projects or sub-project details here. I'm going to change my view a little bit here and reduce my zoom a little bit. Is that still legible for people?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So again, you can show this, right off a roadmap to look at this information. I can edit details of my project plan, right here. Changing, what kind of project is it? Changing my start, my end dates, etc. The information about costing, you could pull that from something much more detailed like a Microsoft project. Or if you're tracking certain information in SAP, I can be pulling information from that or pushing information to it. Again, having the links to processes and that kind of information. I'm going to go back to the top and look at things from an application landscape perspective. And I can take a look at my action plans associated with that. So each row is a system or an application. And again, you know, systems owner, responsibility, the vendor, costs associated with that, and projects that are going to implement, you know, impact that information system, that application. So all of a sudden I've tied a variety of different projects to that application. Description, who's the project manager? What's my costing information? Start and end date, capabilities that are going to be delivered by that project. So again, I've got a different view on that content. You know, looking at it, you know, again, from that systems perspective. But these are the action plans for this model or diagram only. So I can go up here and take a look at application views. For whatever reason, this takes a while to show up. And what do I want to be looking at here? Application action plans. So here's my entire portfolio across the organization. Maybe. There we go. So again, my various systems, description, type of system, who's the owner, system responsibility, vendor, direct costs that I've identified. And again, different projects that are impacting those applications. But now I'm looking at it on a portfolio basis. So I've got the same table, but for all of my systems. And then, you know, this is Excel, right? So if I want to sort, filter, you know, look at the various things that, you know, that I want to see about a particular project. And again, you want to change, you know, look at your cost totals. You know, I have that information available. If I can get over there. There we go. No. There we go. Direct costs, administration costs, labor costs. You know, over my entire portfolio. From an investment perspective, actually, I'm going to go. There's actually an investment model that can look at a particular initiative or project, identify certain costs and dates, and I can relate that initiative, that project, to certain corporate goals and strategies that are associated with that. So I can show the contribution or the link to a specific strategy, goal. It also ties back to the application. And again, I can go and look at things from a portfolio perspective. And here are my different initiatives. Again, what goals they're tied to. And again, this is a pivot table. So I want to identify certain corporate goals or strategies. These are the different initiatives that are contributing to it. You know, here's what I think likelihood of moving forward on any of those things. And you know, current status information. Again, you can present, you know, what you want in these tables. Everybody likes hard copy. Investment, and I want or you want a more standardized report to give to senior management, generate one. Here's a PDF with all my various goals and the projects and various contributions and costs and their impact. And if I want to wind up printing that or emailing it or whatever I need to do, I can do that. But again, showing you the possibilities from the web in terms of generating, you know, various kinds of reports related to projects. If I go to investment and transformation risk, I'm going to relate, you know, risk to different initiatives and tie that in as well. So I can take my risk registers and everybody that I've talked to in terms of different projects, everybody has a risk register that they run for every project. How many of those risks are repeated or common? You know, so you're tying it to different initiatives, and those initiatives might tie back to multiple risks, or that, you know, a particular risk could tie to certain goals. Again, you've got that linkage. You know, here's 4 different initiatives where we've got, you know, a specific risk tied to all 4 of those things. And then we can look at the impact of that risk. Those risks are mitigated by various controls. So all of a sudden I have a way of justifying projects. To put those controls in place, you know, to mitigate that risk costs money. So if I have a particular project that's going to eliminate the need for that mitigation, or is going to provide me a different way of dealing with it, you know, I've got a different way of justifying, you know, my the cost for my particular project. If I look at strategy and go to risk. Again, looking at risk registers structured and organized by project. So again, looking at what you want to deal with, you know, in terms of identifying and dealing with that risk as it relates to specific projects or different areas. I'm actually going to flip over to QLM for a moment. Back to the framework strategy. And I want to look at my roadmaps, and we'll look at the one that we looked at before. Does everyone know about the Actions tab and the various pre-configured functions that are available there? So from a strategic roadmap point of view, you know, I may want to generate things, you know, for a series of initiatives and generate the Gantt chart associated with that. So all typical tools that you would see, you know, in use in some project management implementation. Again, looking at roadmap costs, want to graphically show this information. Again, some of this we showed on the web, in terms of roadmap. One thing that is not always easy to show on the web is actually comparing different scenarios. So I want to compare my base to some different scenarios that I built out in private workspaces for how I see projects going forward. So I'm going to compare those different scenarios right here.
Does NRCan have QualiWare? Do you know?
Actually, there was someone on the last user group meeting that from Natural Resources.
Yeah, because they are using Clarity PPM for a lot of what you're showing here, and I'm wondering if they're aware of what QualiWare can do.
So here's the base configuration, where I'm looking at different things: cost, benefit, profit versus importance, level of effort, for different components. Here I'm comparing that to different scenarios that I've built out in my private workspace, for dealing with that project, for dealing with those costs. If I go back to my so if I'm in the tool, I have a little bit more flexibility in terms of what I can do in terms of comparing scenarios, but I can actually do a bit of a scenario analysis right here as well on the web. But it's predefined. Right, because I've built out in my publisher what I'm looking at. Whereas when I'm over in QualiWare, I get to select and choose, what is going to go into my scenario analysis, which initiatives, etc. So again, from a project management, project control point of view, we'll never match something like Microsoft Project that's going to break it down to the absolute lowest level of this particular resource, work this many hours, etc., etc. But use a tool like that, gather the information together, and then pull it up into QualiWare to display in a dashboard and to pull your costs together. A lot of people don't know about the various types of models within QualiWare, in terms of breaking down a project. Let me find the right ones here. Whether it's a workflow model, where I've identified specific kinds of project activities, and those project activities could be a short description, purpose, prerequisites, who's responsible, involved, various dates, various financial information that I want to pull into it, or projects. A project activity could be a breakdown, and I'm going to go to all templates. I'm going to go to project. If I can spell. And hey, let's open a specific project and take a look at it.
Kevin, can you make that a little bit larger, please? It's a bit difficult for some folks to see.
Okay. Yeah, I think I can. Let's do that. So again, templates that are built into QualiWare for project management, right? I can have projects that break down that, you know, again, what's in scope for that project, out of scope. You know, what organizational units are involved? Do I have a project code, a project number? What IT business partners are involved? Give me the details of that project, start date, end date. You know, what work models, and that's what I just showed you here, are involved. I can actually, and I don't know if people know that there are critical path diagrams in QualiWare that will track. You can do the calculations to look for slack to identify your critical path on a particular project. And again, those, you know.
I'm using the capability project, mapping projects to capabilities. That's works quite well.
Okay, perfect. I'm just going to pull up
DC, BCM version 2 capabilities, and all the rest of that.
So, for example, here's a diagram that shows a critical path. There we go. So here it is, and in tools, calculate the earliest completion, latest completion. What kind of slack? Mark the critical path, unmark it. Toggle day, date, number, calculation, you know, your plan uncertainty. You know, if you open each of these objects, you know, that's a project activity object. And, you know, I'm going to change some dates and recalculate my path. So again, built-in functionality to help you manage different kinds of projects. The nice thing about having it in QualiWare is that you can relate it to other things. These projects are here because of this initiative. These projects are here and are going to deliver these capabilities. So all of a sudden, you know, delivering point in time workspaces. Where am I at this particular date in terms of delivering that capability or on this particular project? If I look at transformation plans, what initiatives do I have on the go and what sub-projects are involved in that? And, you know, what things are tied to those different projects? You know, linking in a business case. And if I want to take that and I want to deliver a higher level model, you know, to my organization, you know, whether it's you know, something specific for a particular role, you know, or just a series of initiatives. Again, different things that you can tie into, you know, to a high level model. And I can link in, you know, different projects, different initiatives, build a view for a particular part of my organization. Anyhow, just a little bit about, you know, we had a question from a customer about project management capabilities within QualiWare. And since we've done a bit of that research, I thought I'd share this with you. Now, again, a lot of organizations focus on, you know, the process side of things, but being able to use the roadmaps and, you know, build out different scenarios for an approach to a project or a series of projects, you know, a different way to use QualiWare.
Thank you, Kevin.
That's all I have to talk about. Other than for the first time since the start of the contract, the GCEA contract, I think that we are what, 90% there, Cecile?
Oh, it's more than that now. Now it's 95%.
In terms of the maintenance and support renewals for the software under the GCEA contract. You know, we're in pretty good shape with that this year. So thanks to Cecile and the guys at the PSVC and in the different departments, you know, making sure that their procurement people were on top of it. So we're you know, not even a month past the renewal date, and we're 95% of the way there. So just to let people know. And there are a few other departments looking at adopting QualiWare and what they can do with it. IRCC, we're still working with them, and we're working with ISED in terms of how we deploy it within their environment, whether it's a short-term cloud solution while they look at something longer term. ESDC's moving ahead with a short-term solution and a longer-term cloud implementation as well. Theirs will be a multi-server deployment, whereas some of the other stuff that we're doing is it's much smaller scale. You know, with ISED, we're talking about deploying a close reach cloud. You know, so they're going in our multi-tenant instance potentially, and with a couple of repositories to build content in. You know, what we're looking at with ESDC is a multi-server deployment, and they would manage the servers within that environment. So a few different things going on, you know, along the scale there, and you know, looking at some different kinds of onboarding and Pathfinder projects with our CMP. We've been talking to AAFC about some of this stuff, and a couple of others as well. So there's a lot going on, COVID or not.
It's true.
Anybody else have anything that they want to share, or any questions that they might have, or any comments?
James wants to know, when will previous and current user group meetings be posted online?
So if you go to our YouTube video channel, you'll find some of that information right there. Let me see if I can get there while I'm here.
So everyone, I'm going to put a link to the YouTube channel that Kevin is talking about. I'm going to put that in the chat.
So you should see my screen right now. I am on YouTube, and here is user group talking about QualiWare workflow automation and analytics. Here is QualiWare 10.3 in Azure, modeling in a browser. The information data visualization talk. We had a bit of a talk about cybersecurity. What we've actually done is break out, you know, what might be a large user group meeting, you know, an hour worth of video, into different segments, and being able to look at that. This is the talk that Mike Haley, if he's still on the line, gave about CBP.
No, Mike.
So again, we're taking, you know, various parts of that, and in some of them we'll have a broken down table of contents here. You know, if it's a very long piece, this one's just short. But
for those of you that are interested, I put the link to the YouTube channel in the chat for this meeting. I see, James, you were able to get to it, so that's great.
There are a number of different videos up there. We've got the risk management one we're just editing to put up, and a few others as well. So as we get those posted, you know, they'll be on the channel. All right.
Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Appreciate it.